John Briggs is an accountant who reached a conclusion that cuts against much of the accounting industry. People often produce better results when they work fewer hours and take deliberate breaks. He has a CPA and a master's degree in tax, and after starting his career at Deloitte, he built Insight Tax from a solo practice into a multi-million-dollar firm with almost 300 team members. Insight grew 492% while its team averaged 42 hours a week during tax season. He's the author of The 3.3 Rule and his latest book, Take Breaks, Work Better, Measure Impact, Not Hours, and Transform Your Profitability. John, welcome to the podcast.
Brad, thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. And a really interesting topic, I think. Why is it, do you think, why do leaders manage people by the hours they work rather than the results they produce?
In most cases, it's how our compensation is structured. So we just automatically think, okay, hours worked, especially with the different rules, like, oh, this person has to be hourly rate, this person's salary. But the salary for most companies is calculated based on an expected number of hours worked. It's easy to fall into the trap of like, hey, let's have the butt in the seat for this clocked time. And we kind of lose focus of, well, what is the purpose of why are they there? I'm certainly not saying, hey, if you're paying someone for 40 hours, be happy if they're only giving you 20. I'm not saying that. But yeah, we need to shift a little bit more to focusing more on results orientation versus just a butt in the seat.
I mean, it's really easy to say it's 5 p.m. and the person is still in their seat, or they left an hour ago, or what. There is some preconception of accountability relating to time in many people's minds, when in actual fact the results could be exceptional or atrocious.
Yeah. I mean, we've had team members put in a lot of hours and not a lot of production, and we have others. I mean, everyone experiences this. I'm sure it's like, wow, this person is just cranking stuff out. They
How do I
could
get
probably
more
have
of
two
that?
jobs. Yeah. They could probably have two jobs. And I wouldn't even know or care as long as they're doing, I'm paying for a result. This is the result I'm expecting. Like, wow, you're getting it done in half the time. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you've got a master's in tax and came through Deloitte in an industry that often treats billable hours as proof of value. How did you end up convincing people that people perform better by working less, which is not necessarily exactly what you're saying in your book, but the concept of the question still stands?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a fair takeaway. I am saying people will produce more if you let them work less. And we can get into the science of that. But, I would say, I don't know if I've convinced the world yet. I'm still working on it. That's my journey. And it took me a bit, even when I implemented the rule with my company years ago, they initially thought, wait, is this guy just trying to catch me, like find a reason to fire me? You want me to actually take a break and not do anything work related? So it even took convincing of them, and I'm the guy who invented the rule and put the science together and figured this out, and even they were a little skeptical. I, for me, I just tell people, look, as you understand what we're going to be talking about here, prove me wrong. The only way to prove me wrong is to actually do what I'm asking you to do, to tell me you took a break, a good break, because a break isn't just the absence of work, but a good restorative break. And when you came back, tell me you weren't more productive.
So tell us about the rule, how you uncovered it and used it in your own business.
Yeah, so the rule itself, it's called the 3.3 rule because the science supports the most productive workday consists of working up to 3 hours at a time, followed by a 30% recovery break, hence the 3.3. Up to 3 hours, the 0.3 is the 30% recovery break. And it's a framework on purpose. This isn't a rigid thing. Some people might be familiar with the Pomodoro method, which is like 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, rinse and repeat. And then after the fourth time, take a longer break. That method, great for studying. Like that's what it's created for. The guy couldn't focus for more than an hour on studying. The challenge with a rigid system is that if you're in flow state and a timer goes off, you've just ruined your flow state.
Yeah.
And if you're in flow state, you're being productive. So we don't want to ruin that. And we're all different, right? Introvert, extrovert, ambivert, omnivert. I don't know all the verts they have these days. I feel like they keep coming up with more. We're all different. And so based on the task we're doing, I might find the ability to focus, say, on spreadsheets really easy, where someone else, they might want to bash their head against the wall doing spreadsheets, but they might love answering phones. And so depending on the task you take and your personality, certain tasks you might not be able to focus for the full 3 hours because that's not how it's designed. It's designed to be an awareness of, okay, I feel like I'm not very focused right now. That's my body telling me I need to take a break. You take a break and you come back more focused.
What is the break? You say 0.3, but could you just elaborate and explain
Sure.
The break?
Yeah. So like if I worked up to an hour, my break would be 20 minutes. If I worked the full 3 hours, my break would be an hour. And when I say break, I am saying a complete detachment from something work related. What's going on, and the reason the way most of us still approach work is we're constantly under cognitive load. And the Princeton Neurological Institute did a study and found that our brains have a natural cycle between a state of focus and a state of distractibility. Natural cycles are very interesting. You can't fight them. I always use the example, the most natural cycle that I could think of that's like, yeah, you're not fighting that. Going to the bathroom. If you need to go to the bathroom and you adopt this mindset that exists in most companies, like, well, I'm just going to push through because I'm going to be lazy if I take a break, you quickly find out something else is pushing its way through. You can't hustle your way past the need to relieve yourself. And it's easier to see that because we have the physical sensation. We don't always, until we're aware of it, we don't notice the physical sensation of, I'm not focused right now. But when you keep on trying to work through that point when your brain's like, I need to be distracted for a second, you're trying to push your way through a natural cycle and it's just not going to work.
How do you find, if at all, as someone who thinks and speaks a lot in this arena, that artificial intelligence has changed the busyness or the way that people are needing to break? And I say that because it's my experience in the people that I deal with that artificial intelligence is making people perhaps a lot more productive, but also there's a lot of exhaustion out there because of that.
Yeah, I love AI. I use it every day. Big fan of Claude. I got my Claude project set up for the different things. Big fan. But for me, I'm not using AI to think for me. I'm using it as a tool and a resource, help me organize my thoughts, help me brainstorm a little bit, do something for me, and then let me be the final edit on the back end. And so the same principles of the way we function as human stays the same, regardless of how productive we are during the time we're focused. I would hope that AI is going to help everyone be more productive during their focus blocks. But your mind, just because you've been using AI, doesn't mean you've reduced your cognitive load. I mean, I would argue in some levels, I feel like I'm learning faster because I am using AI, which would indicate my cognitive load is higher now than it was prior to AI. My brain still needs that proper break where I can detach from work and do something that gives me, like, lets my brain go to a state of distraction, reduces or eliminates cognitive load during that period so that I can come back more focused.
In a typical, I would say, union endorsed style workday, which might be more manual labor, which is different. There might be let's say a 4-hour work period, then a 30-minute lunch break, and then a 3 or 4 hour. I think that may have worked well, and again, it could have been driven by manual labor, but I feel like now that's somewhat been lost, and people are eating at their desk, or the breaks have just been kind of somewhat lost. So perhaps the original design was there. We've lost it. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. If we think about the way our workday is structured, we actually, if you go back and find the history of when that change happened, in the industrial age, manual labor, watching machines, they averaged 80 to 100 hours a week, and they were working 6 days a week. So then this guy comes along and he's like, I got this product that most people don't want to buy if they only have 1 day off a week. It's like, you know what? I'm going to give him an extra day. So he creates the weekend for us. And he's like, yeah, but if I just create the weekend, they're still putting in 12-hour days. They're exhausted. They don't want to go anywhere, which is what my product's going to help them with. I'm going to cap the hours worked a day to 8. So Henry Ford, arguably to sell more cars, created what we now know as the weekend and the 40-hour work week. And look, compared to 80 to 100 hours a week, that is a massive improvement. We'll take it. But it's because now his people, like primarily his factory workers who are having the money to could even buy the cars, they're like, oh, I have an extra day and I'm not exhausted. I can drive and go to a place further than what my horse could take me. But we still do that. And yet we have 100 years of science to tell us, yeah, 40 hours a week is better than 80 hours a week. But the way our brains work, even for manual labor, it's still cognitive load. There might be muscle memory involved, but you have OSHA stuff, right? I mean, there's safety issues with manual labor that taking proper breaks and capping someone's work block at 3 hours will actually give them better productivity and make their workplace safer.
This episode is brought to you by Evolution Partners, where we help leaders to confidently build enduring great companies using our proven, structured, strategic planning process that ensures you build and execute the right plan to build the business that you want and the life that you want. Check us out at evolutionpartners.com.au. And you can also check out our books, Made to Thrive, which is about the 5 roles of a CEO. Becoming a great CEO rather than just a good CEO in your business. Second is Onboarded, which is about hiring and onboarding great people, making sure that you give yourself the greatest chance for people to succeed in your organization. And then third is Bigger Isn't Better, Better is Better, which is about building a business that is better rather than bigger. It's not about building a little business. It's about building a business that compounds, a business that you can actually fall in love with again. You mentioned Pomodoro before. When I previously have thought about this type of thing, I've thought of time blocking. So when one thinks about the way to manage your I'll say flow state or effectiveness, where is the gap that is left from Pomodoro and time blocking that the 3.3 rule is designed to fill?
Yeah. For me, if I think specifically about the Pomodoro method, what was the reason it was created? And if I'm studying, that method can work. I'm focused for 25 minutes. I'm interrupted from my studying because I'm just trying to remember stuff, right? If I take that same application to my work life, there's not very many tasks that it's like, hey, cool, I'm in the middle of this thing. Oh, 25 minutes. Okay, I'm off. And then I'm going to come back. It's like, well, I'm in the middle of it and I feel like I'm being productive. Let me finish it instead of, studies show with that switch tasking, it can take people hours to get back in the zone if they don't do it the right way. It is a time block. The 3.3 method is a time blocking format, but it is still a framework. Normal time blocking is I'm going to do this for an hour, and most people don't build in white space, so they follow that time block with another time block. And now you have time blocks after time block, no white space during the day, and you've just tried to push your way through a natural cycle of distractibility. What I'm suggesting is have focus blocks, but let that focus block vary in time based on how you're feeling for the day, based on the task you're approaching. Like, I know that in general, if I'm working with spreadsheets, I'm going to enjoy that work. So I might pre-plan, this is going to be a 3-hour block because I have 3 hours worth of work to do here. But if I'm in the middle of that block and maybe I had a bad day or a bad morning, argument with my wife, or one of my kids ticked me off or something, we carry life with us into work. And so that could affect my ability to stay focused for the full 3 hours. And if after an hour, I'm like, I need a break, I'm going to go ahead and take that break. So that I'm going to take 30% of how long I worked. So mathematically, it all works out to be about 6 hours of productivity a day in an 8-hour shift. It just depends on how we bunch it up, as long as we're doing proper recovery breaks afterwards.
And tell me about those recovery breaks, because I feel as though there are some people who might get their phone and just scroll endlessly on their phone, or other people who might get their phone and then just do their emails on their phone. What would you classify as an effective recovery break in this context?
Yeah, great point. It's like you've walked through my office and every other office when people are on a break.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Shocker that social media has created a dopamine fiends out of people with their algorithms. So the science behind it is we are looking for a break, some sort of activity that reduces or minimizes, which is the same word as reduces, or completely eliminates cognitive load. Scrolling on your phone still engages your brain. It might be a different type of engagement to you, but as far as your brain is concerned, it's still using the energy that you actually need to give it a break from. Doom scrolling is the worst. It's actually top of the list of worst break activities. And I want to specify, if you want to do that, I'm not saying don't do that. Great, go for it. I'm talking about recovery breaks with the intention that you're coming back to a focus block. And if your intention is to come back to a focus block, doom scrolling, not a good idea. The gold standard is walking outside.
Okay.
Because in general, being outside gives us positive brain release, especially if we're not plugged in still. I'm talking about unplugged, not listening to an audiobook, just unplugged from cognitive load. Being outside is helpful. And then light movement is also very helpful. So if you put those two together, that's effectively what walking is. So walking is the gold standard. A lot of things that creatives do are actually pretty good to reduce cognitive load. So painting, drawing, journaling, coloring in a coloring book, those types of things help reduce cognitive load. You don't want to do any of those things. Sitting and staring out the window, taking a nap, those are also really good recovery break activities. Plus, most sleep study experts will tell you, a 10 to 15 minute nap is always going to be better for you than a 3-hour nap. And so, don't overdo the nap, but it's my favorite break activity.
It's interesting. It makes me think about smokers. Perhaps less common today, but several years ago, you would go past an office and there'd be a bunch of people out the front smoking, and they're effectively taking a break. Unhealthy, of course, but the other people are still powering through on perhaps their cognitive load. But the smokers have stopped. They're probably having a chat. They're doing something different. It's interesting.
Chatting with someone at work, other than chatting about work things, is actually really good. And as if you're managing a giant team like your listeners are, that's really helpful, because not only do you get them to come back, they took a good break, they come back more focused, but they also build camaraderie with another team member. And sometimes that can keep an employee with you. You don't have to replace them as quickly because they enjoy working with the people they enjoy to work with. The only thing about smoking is it'd be interesting to see how the nicotine's affecting the chemical nature of the brain, to see if that element is actually helping or hurting a break. But all the other elements you described are good break activities.
Yeah, we are not advocating for smoking. Don't take it up. As I was preparing for this episode and researching, it really made me think about a shift in society, to zoom out a little bit, that 10 years ago or 20 years ago, very much the talk was about hustle culture. You need to sleep when you're dead. You need to work as much as you can, and the gains will come later. But just you need to work as hard as you can. But there seems to be a lot of interest in this topic around look after yourself, or you need to manage your time at a really broad level. Do you think that we just learned from bad experience of people burning out, or what do you think is kind of driving this generally?
I mean, I could just share my opinion on it. I don't have enough data to back this up, but if I look at hustle culture, because it is still ingrained in so much of society, and there's still people who fight that guilt. I remember I have a Substack group, and a guy responded. He's like, "I want to do this. I just don't know how to get past the guilt." I'm like, he's like, I can see the science. I just don't know the guilt. It's still ingrained everywhere. They have two definitions for their success that leads to their quote unquote happiness: more money, more status. Anything that feeds my ego, which money can do, but then the other things of, I'm also hanging out with all these other people who have the same mindset. If we grind and we're the gurus and people listen to us and we're influencers, most of those people don't understand true happiness. And I think when I look at now people catching on, it's because maybe they realize, wow, I've accomplished these things, or I've seen someone who've accomplished these things. They don't seem very happy. And I think we need to allow ourselves to redefine what our definition of success is based on our own lives. For me, that's spending time, even as an introvert, that's still spending time with human beings, specifically the ones I love the most, which is my wife and my kids. But I have dear friends as well. And you create relationships with people, you get a lot of happiness from that. You can't do that if you're stuck behind a desk trying to push yourself through like your unproductive hours. And I think people have just caught on. There's so many different angles that bring these different levels of happiness together. So I think as a society, maybe the people who are catching on have understood there's a deeper level that makes up the whole realm of happiness. Hard work is certainly one of those. I believe someone who has all the money in the world and just hangs out on a beach all day and does nothing productive, I don't think they're truly happy.
Yeah.
So there's elements of want to be productive. We want to see that we're contributing. Those are elements of happiness for sure. And I'm not saying like when you work hard. I don't disagree with that element of hustle culture. Gosh, there's so much more to life than just the money and the ego status.
So you put this into your own company, and we brushed over this earlier on, but I do want to not leave this unasked or not touch on this. How did people react to it? How did it work? What were the challenges? What happened? Like, just give us a bit of the story as to how you embedded it in your own company.
Initial was massive skepticism. Seriously, they thought he's just trying to catch me not working so he can fire me. And so what I had to do, just like any parent, you want to excite yourself and show gratitude for the positive behavior.
Yeah.
And so I would try to catch people on their break, doing a good break. And I'd be a little bit louder than normal so other people in the office could hear me. And it's like, hey, what are you doing right now? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, you got, what are you guys talking about? So you guys on your break? Wow. It's a good 3.3 break. Thank you so much. That's so great. And then in team meetings, you're like, hey, who took a good break this week? And so they finally, they got past the skepticism after a couple of weeks, oh, John's serious that he wants us to take breaks. Then that led to the next problem we came across was I found some people, because if you do the math, it's 6 hours of productivity a day with 2 hours of break. So if I, for example, work from 1 to 4 p.m., that's a 3-hour focus block, then my break would be 4 to 5. And, my philosophy is if the last hour of your day or the last part of your day is a 3.3 break, go ahead and leave. Like, go take driving a car to your house is, for most people, a decent break. Plus, you're not coming back to a focus block. Well, the challenge with that is because life happens, you can't predict a day to a week, even this lady 3 years in advance of she's going to take off from 4 to 5 every day the rest of her work career. And I'm like, you can't possibly know ahead of time that you're going to get 3 hours of focused productivity between 1 to 4. You can't. Like today, I might even, thinking about tomorrow, I cannot tell you if between 1 and 4 tomorrow, there's not going to come a point where I'm like, I need to take a break right now. And it's not 4 o'clock. But if I need to take a break, I take a break. So the whole pre-planning was a little bit much, and we had to work through. This is more of a tool to help you become self-aware when you're not being focused so that you take that intentional break, not a tool to let you get out of the last hour of the day.
What surprised you? We've all worked with people like that, and it's entertaining. What surprised you when it went from concept all the way through being fully implemented and accepted? What was the thing that kind of surprised you along that journey?
I mean, the increase in profitability, I was actually blown away. I saw the science. I was still a little nervous because I'm like, I'm gonna pay people to not work. And 50 people head count, 300 people head count. That's not a small dollar amount in labor you're paying for them to just sit there and do nothing. And so I was nervous that maybe the science isn't going to work out, but I wanted to try it out. Because within the first 3 years of implementing it, we increased our profitability by 492%. I did not expect that at all.
Wow. And probably what I'm hearing through there is fighting some of the trained urges as an accountant, and naturally being perhaps more closer to the numbers than some business owners. So that's great. How does someone know when it's time to take a break, when they've stopped producing useful work?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all of us have slightly different signs. For me, if my eyes are getting droopy, that definitely is a sign. If I've reread the same sentence or paragraph a couple times, I usually take that as a sign. If I find myself finishing a task and then debating too long of what I want to do next, that to me is also a sign, because really what I've reached this state of mental decision fatigue, and it's like I don't want to make a decision. I'm sure most of us are living with a to-do list that never ends, and so our constant challenge is, what am I prioritizing? Am I prioritizing the right way? Because there's no end to work that I need to do. And if I find myself sometimes if I got caught in the loop, it'll be 10 minutes of me going through a list and convincing myself why that's what I shouldn't do. And if I do that, I can't do that. But if I want to do that, then I just go through this loop. And for 10 minutes, I ended up doing nothing. And I'm no closer to choosing what the next thing I should work on is.
It's a great sign, yeah.
Yeah.
You advocate people try it for 30 days, as I understand. So if you tried it for 30 days and you tested the system for a month, what should the CEO or leader change or do or measure, and how would they know it's time to continue?
I believe so. Some people, they might initially be skeptic. A lot of people are skeptics. But when they hear it, they're like, well, this feels like it's promoting laziness. So I want to be clear. When you work, you need to work. And that's something we ingrain in our company. Like, there's a pace you have to work at in a tax firm to only average 42 hours a week. So when you work, you better be freaking working. The only way for me to know how to do that is metrics. I'm a big fan of metrics. And so over the course of the 30 days, you should have a baseline of already, this is what we were producing before we tried this experiment. And then you track during the experiments, like how much are people getting done during the workday now? How much are they getting done per focus block? And that, because part of it is like, look, if you let them take intentional breaks and have proper recovery, their production will increase. But I'm also a big fan of figuring out how are you more productive during the time when you actually are focused as well. I think all those still apply. And I don't know any other way to give guidance to a team member without seeing what were you doing before and what are you doing now, and let's coach you through any performance issues. So those still, I believe, need to happen. But by the end of the 30 days, if it worked out, you're going to see that people are more productive, and you're going to see a change in their demeanor. If you've been doing it this long, there's going to be a shift in less burnout.
It sounds like you'd better be certain about the person's metrics as well, where it may be the default for some people. I was going to use the word lazy, but I wouldn't use that. That would be inappropriate. To measure their time rather than an actual measure. It's a little bit. It might be a little bit more work, but it's the results that matter. So you'd want to get that side of things done first. You'd want to know this is the actual measure that we're going to focus people on.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really like, is this going to work out or not? You have to have something measurable, and hours worked should theoretically be the same at the beginning of the 30 days versus the end, right? We're not asking people to put more hours into the day. We're asking you to restructure how you work those hours so that you should have better results in the same hours by the end of 30 days.
Awesome. What a awesome concept. I love it. John, what is a book that you would recommend for our audience?
The first thing that came to mind, because I am introverted, but one of the things that's been very critical to our business's growth and success is relationships. And so I just finished a book called Rich Relationships by Selena Soo. And she has a really great method. She's also an introvert. She has a lot of ideas for someone like me on how you can network with people without feeling like I kind of do when I see some of these super extroverted. I don't know I have a phrase in my head that I probably can't say, but people that most don't want to interact with, but they're just really big and loud. I don't ever want to come across as one of those people, because then they ask you the same question every time you see them. They don't remember anything about you, but they're good at networking.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy. And so I appreciated that Selena in her book had a ton of tools and methods and approaches on how to network as an introvert to have a genuine connection with somebody, as opposed to kind of the superficial stuff that I don't really like it when I'm introduced to someone that way. So yeah, that's been a great book for me.
Rich Relationships.
Rich Relationships.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. How can people learn more about you? I guess as well, when is the book coming out? Because it's coming out quite soon. How can people learn more about you and the work you do?
Yeah, the book is August 25th. And so if you're listening to this before then, go to takebreaksworkbetter.com/pre-order. We do have some fun bonuses if you buy it before it's released. And then you can check me out on LinkedIn, or I have a website, therealjohnbriggs.com. That Substack at therealjohnbriggs.com.substack. That's where I write to my community. And those are a few places you can find me.
Beautiful. We'll put those in the show notes as well. What haven't we covered off today that you'd hoped to cover off, John?
Yeah, you covered everything. A lot of times we don't get to the whole redefining success. And I just really want people to sit with that idea for a second, because I think sometimes if we haven't defined our own success, we often find when we think about it that we're measuring our life based on someone else's standards or someone else's expectations, which does lead to a disconnect in how we can be truly happy. And like giving people the permission. You don't want to grow $1 million company, a $20 million company, fine. That's okay. You're happy at 10 million with your size of team, cool. But like define it for you, choose it for you. Don't do it just because someone else is telling you should do it that way. So we got into that already, but I just hope people give themselves permission to do that.
John, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I love its simple concept. I love that that you've done it in your own business and against yours and many people's better judgment, prove that it works and are advocating for perhaps a better way to rethink things. So thank you again for sharing your wisdom today.
Thanks, Brad.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. If you'd be kind enough to leave a review for the podcast, that'd be really helpful to other like-minded entrepreneurs, and then we can grow our community. If you want to find out more about our guests, head over to evolutionpartners.com.au/podcast, where you can find show notes and other additional reading. Hope to see you back next week. Until then, keep thriving.